Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. And at best, this last second part of Ready to Love reunion. When I say own it is okay to fire up some production staff so that we can have a better produced reunion. RHOA just did it, and I think it is time that y'all look at the same. Y'all, let's get to the second half of Ready to Love Season 9 Dallas reunion. You did it to me once again, my friends. Now let me stop. Hey, y'all, I'm back. I know it's late. It's late, because I know we talked about this last week, and I was supposed to do it last week, and it didn't get done yet, honey. I'm just telling you right now. Y'all know me, Question Crew. I love y'all. It's your girl, Tammy. Thank you for allowing me back and to finish up this late review. I apologize, y'all, but it's been a crazy, crazy week. I have a huge project at work. I have a team to lead on this project, and it is costly. So thank y'all for your patience, and let's get into it. So we didn't came back from last week. Cocaine Alexis. I don't want to say cocaine Alexis. I'm gonna say cocaine Barbie. Barbie. Alexis has exited the building, honey. Time to let them know. We tried to get her back. We tried to have conversation with her, and she just wasn't having it. Alexis and that ponytail have walked out, honey. And it is for the greater good, because the energy was just weird at some point, and it threw off the entire situation. But they got everybody razzle dazzle back onto the stage, and they are continuing on with their pursuit. And their pursuit was really for the truth and just to find out who the hell in the world would hook up with Lamar. So we get to old Lizard Lamar, and he's been a point of contention on the show for many of the women. He's been argumentative, very, very cocky, and extremely creepy and cringy. The conversations that Lamar has had with the women on the show have just been inappropriate. He's very loud. He brings up sex way too early into the situation, and we have just not been impressed. And he's very cantankerous around any kind of conversation about his behavior. Lamar is slimy. And so they touch on a lot of those situations. Now, something that I thought sucked that they left out of the actual reunion is the fact that Lamar and April had an exchange. They left an extra after clip on, but they basically just had an exchange where she at one point had called Lamar, I believe, trash. Garbage. And he was not feeling that comment. But Lamar and his gazelles are here to set the record straight. He says that, he can come off a little bit rough, but he just likes to shake it up a bit. And ultimately, the ladies are like, look, whether or not you like to shake it up, Lamar, we're not feeling you. And Patrice says, she was sort of disgusted. The ways in which everybody's face, both on the couch and behind the scenes, was just disgusted by some of his comments. There was a little bit of jokey joke, but clearly the women were just all saying the same thing. Like, you make everybody feel so uncomfortable up front. And I think sometimes even with men like this, they think that it's adorable or cute, but it ultimately just is a lot of people sometimes just smiling just to get through the exchange. But like, I would not be visiting back there. So Lamar tries to excuse his behavior. He never really apologizes for, I feel like, in a way that he should have, for all of the ways in which he made the women feel uncomfortable. He ultimately says it's his personality. It's not for everybody. He understands that, but he tries to keep it spicy and keep it interesting. He's a man that likes sex. We don't need to know that, sir. And he likes having a good time, and people are a little too stuffy. So we kind of learned nothing new, other than that we like to keep Lamar in that same old cringy box. And there's a lid for every pot, but I must admit, I feel like Lamar is a frying pan that will have no partner in life unless she creepy too. So then we head over to Mr. Jonathan, honey, who we really have not seen for a while, because, he exited the show so early. His connection just really wasn't there. They eliminated him because Jonathan really just didn't open up at all. And so Tommy goes to touch back on the issues that made us see Jonathan a different way. Again, I have to say, Jonathan looked fantastic. He was one of the few men that was dressed properly for the night. And I've also seen him in something else. He knows how to put on a suit, and very good colors. Against his skin tone, looks beautiful. Anyway, Jonathan ends up watching over his journey, and they ultimately show Jonathan, not feeling the question answer period that happened like early on in like the episode of 2 or 3 that went on between him, Mika, and April at the table, and kind of him hiding throughout his connection that he had an ex-wife and not just a baby mama. There's just a lot of shakiness with his story and the constant back and forth change that just didn't make sense. He would ultimately stop talking during conversations that he felt like he had no input, or rather that he had nothing more to say to add to the situation, even though there was a line of questioning that should have happened after he would drop some part of his story he never entered in before. And then they also show how during their whole pajama jammy jam, he got into a little bit of a uncomfortable space with Alexis regarding how he picked her up and just like a little bit of the way that went down. So they talked to Jonathan about, the situation. He says regarding him and Mika and the whole conversation, he was uncomfortable. I also told y'all, I remember in the comments, that I was uncomfortable with the exchange. Y'all let me know how y'all felt about that exchange. I have no problem with the fact that he had an ex-wife, and I agree with Mika, who chimed in at some point during the reunion to say that she felt like he should have mentioned that he was married. But the line of questioning was it was ghetto. It was like the way she was talking to him, it was unnecessary. Like, you didn't have to say like, oh, so you and your baby mama. Like, it was like, girl, just have a conversation with him. Now, I will say this, Jonathan wasn't very forthcoming when certain questions were asked. And to April's point, that was an issue for them in sort of getting to know him. He was a bit more closed off. Being reserved doesn't mean secretive. And that's what Jonathan wasn't connecting with. He said that he does or has learned from that situation. I do also think how you engage a person matters, and Mika needs to clean that up, because the way her and April engaged him, it did feel like they really weren't giving him a chance to answer. And then they also were just kind of being a little too probing, because I think at that point it was on like episode 2 or 3. But at the point that he went on the date with April, that's when you started to learn more, and it was kind of weird for him to just throw in things that you never told anybody the whole time. He agrees that he could have been better. He also says that he does apologize, and he did address this on the show with Alexis about making her feel uncomfortable during the pajama jam situation where he kind of picked her up and all that kind of stuff, and it was this whole toe licking situation. He said that he did not want her to feel uncomfortable, and that was never his intention. He was just trying to get things to be lively. And everybody else in the room agreed that up until the point that they started having a little bit more of, I guess, a physical and more jokey connection, it was kind of boring, even though it was supposed to be like a sexy night. Everybody's in their pajamas. But the importance and awareness of consent was something that was important, and he understood that. I didn't get anything creepy from this, but they do get into his foot fetish, child. And what was so disturbing, and y'all let me know in the comments how y'all felt, but it was just, I want to throw up in my mouth when I saw Zoe lick his tongue and bring his tongue out multiple times regarding the feet situation. Look, we're not gonna kink shame over here, but we just really are not feeling all of the foot fetish conversation. Like, who told y'all licking all the time? Y'all not making sure people wash their feet, especially when it gets towards the summer. But Zoe just constantly throwing his tongue out. It was so disgusting. Jonathan more so mentioned that he had a foot fetish, and he did like the licking actions. And it just shows the maturity between the two, but the constant bringing up of the toe sucking was weird. Tommy begins to ask them who they think has the nicest feet on the cast. Nobody really answers, but then Jonathan does mention that he thinks that a couple of the women have beautiful feet, but he did think Vanessa has some very beautiful feet. And ultimately, they were nice to look at, possibly to suck. All ends well. Nobody has beef with Jonathan. We didn't have an issue with him, but he absolutely needs to be more forthcoming in his, forthcoming in his relationships, because it is going to be a barrier for him to get to know people. And the more secretive he is, we're going to feel like there's a lot more to hide. So hopefully he learned his lesson, but he wasn't that creepy. Let's move on to the creep. You know what it was, y'all? I'm just now figuring it out. I feel like I get it. Chaz's outfit was a complete visual interpretation of what was going on in his mind, because it was all over the place, and so were these thoughts. So we finally get into what was probably the biggest relationship of the season, which was Chaz and Vanessa, and Chaz and all of his likes. And the fact that he's touching on every heart on Instagram does not make him a heartthrob. It bothers me that we, and I mean us in the audience, because we was caught up until a couple of episodes before, that Chaz was a decent dude. I always thought that he was kind of a lame guy that came into his coolness and ultimately didn't know how to handle the women. And I brought that up in my previous reviews, and it showed itself to be proven. But I didn't know he was also just a jackass. And so when you underline it with that, it makes, doesn't make me wonder how he added on that top with that vest. But I feel like this was just a further interpretation that he is out of his goddamn mind. So Tommy moves over to Chaz and Vanessa, who are one of the largest relationships in terms of getting to know each other and connections throughout the season. They have been consistent from like the first two, I'm gonna say like after the first 2 episodes of Chaz saying that Vanessa was constantly in his top, and she eventually became quote unquote his top connection. But Vanessa expressed that although Chaz verbally said that, and initially it felt that way as the process went on, when we are supposed to be eliminating people, he was adding more to the bunch. And he wasn't narrowing down in the way that he was supposed to. They bring up the fact that he had a connection with Rashina, at one point with Mika, at one point with someone else as well. And then ultimately with Patrice, where they were finally at the vacation house, which is when you really should be pairing on in your last couple of people. And then he ultimately left the process at the house because he couldn't handle it. And, she goes on to say that even though he said that verbally, she started to believe it less because his actions did not apply with the words. Chaz chimes in to say that he feels like he always kept it consistent, and everybody could see that. When he would get something for one of the women, he would get ×5 for Vanessa. And he was constantly saying that, but he felt like her insecurity was the issue. Then he said that Vanessa was following him around the house. I don't remember seeing that, and I don't even think production showed anything where she was doing that. I think that she, a couple of times during their stay, did address the issue about what was going on and how she felt about the situation. But when they showed us, at least when they showed us the scenes of them in the vacation home, she more so just wasn't feeling, her attitude shifted up because he was doing too much. At that point, he had only sat down really with her and Rashina. He goes at the house and adds Patrice. And, she goes on to say that, that part was just weird in itself. They asked Patrice about their connection. Patrice, it was ridiculous. I mean, that pick me moment of just trying to be add to the situation. If I had this connection with Zoe, I don't have a connection with anybody else. William goes home. Why were you even adding yourself to the situation? And Patrice is the one that co-signed and kind of kept that going. So I never really fully trust her because of that. Because I just feel like that's not something that you do as a girl's girl. And specifically because she was really cool with Vanessa. It was corny for her to even allow herself to be in that situation. She, along with Chaz, orchestrated that, let's connect. And then ultimately makes it seem like the only reason Chaz came to her was because she was the calmer of the two. There's a difference between pick-me energy and women who were consistent with him wondering what the hell is going on. And so Tommy asked Rashina, like, hey, how did you feel about the situation? And she says, well, yeah, I was also upset that he left the home because, like Vanessa said, it just threw us off. We didn't know what was going on. And we had also sent William home because we were voting for Chaz. So when you leave the vacation, William could have eventually stayed and maybe had more conversation about why he was voted towards the bottom instead of us sending him home because we thought that you were not there. So they get into the whole petrified flower thing and how his creepy ass ended up giving her some old broken rose to say that she was unable to love and that she's a narcissist and that his love for her had died. And Vanessa's like, this really ain't gonna hit the way you think it's gonna hit. And it did not. We thought it was weird. We thought it was stupid as hell. Just like the outfit. And we also just felt like, what was this for? So Tommy asked the group, like, hey, how would you all feel? And Rashina says, like, it would offend me. It would be disrespectful to me if I was to have received that. Chaz says that wasn't the intention, that in fact, he's very creative and he's a poet and he's artistic. And that's why he did that. I have a poetic soul. It wasn't meant to be disrespectful. And it was like, but you did mean it for that reason, sir. You could tell when Vanessa chose herself that he got upset because his thunder got stolen. And that was the issue. He came to tell her he wasn't going to choose her and she got there first. And that messed him up inside. And we saw that same crushing situation later on in the episode. We'll talk about that in a few. So then he goes on to say that, Vanessa's a narcissist and, that's the real issue. And she's like, so I'm a narcissist and you're not? It just got really weird. The more he talked, the more you disliked him. And it wasn't clear and direct. He sounded like a jackass in multiple situations. He was extra defensive when he didn't need to be, or rather he was extra defensive because his motivation was always messed up. He then goes on to say, after Tommy asked the question, like, hey, are you seeing anybody? And he goes, yeah, I am. And Tommy goes, okay, so what's the scenario? Like, what's y'all situation? He's like, well, I'm seeing someone, there's a date set. When I tell y'all, Tommy face and the people in the background, hilarious. Will's in the back with two other women, and he's like, so he was dating y'all. It was giving Kiki time. He was like, so he was dating y'all and dating her at the same time. So Chaz goes on to say that he actually had somebody that he was dating before the show started, and she encouraged him to go on the show anyway, because what dumbass woman would do that? And he said, okay, cool. And then they still picked up after the process. Sir, what? Why were you here if you had another option? You could just tell that as he's talking, the lies continue and continue to go on. And he goes, now it's a serious situation. I know that she's the person or whatever. So somebody said, but it's only been 3 months. And then Tommy goes, okay, the time frame is throwing me off. He didn't believe it either, but he had to do it for the show. They end the segment. Chaz wants to have the last word. He gets kind of extra snippy and nasty with her. And it ultimately shows that Vanessa was a class act and how she handled the situation. And God bless that woman, or that fake woman that Chaz is dating now. Child, so we move on from Chaz and his creepy self to Laron and the lack of accountability. Lack of accountability to Laron. So we go over Laron's journey. We know he's been turning up since day one. And, he mostly set his eyes on Koshia and eventually Maya. And we talk about Laron's ups and downs and the extraness in which he flows. And we get to a space and a place where we're having this one-on-one conversation about Koshia, because we kind of know what happened and went down with Laron and Maya. Now, Laron goes on to say that, he and Koshia, they were definitely the match in the beginning, but the way that he approached the situation, he was not okay, and that she also was dating other people. So sometimes it was uncomfortable for him because he didn't know where she was standing when it came to their situation. And so Coach was like, hold up now. Don't try to deflect. Don't try to deflect, and don't try to lack accountability. She didn't like it the way Laron handled her. And I love that how she addressed it that way. She said ultimately Laron handled her inappropriately with how he approached her regarding talking to other men at the soiree, because at that point in the whole process, they were still allowed to get to know people. And she wasn't doing more than just speaking to different guys that had shown an interest, and also people that she was getting to know. Laron went on to say that she was dating the chef at one point. She was dating Chaz. She said that she had talked with Chaz. They had connected, but Chaz in the back also said, hey, we never went out. We weren't dating. Like, I don't even know what that was. And so it was just a lack of accountability that he wanted to connect with. At the end of the day, Laron was wrong for how he approached her. He then went on to be flirtatious with Maya in that same conversation with Koshia when he was trying to get serious. And he understood, but it's clear that he also doesn't know how to accept that. Accountability part is always about, yes, I heard what you said. This did occur. You don't also have to say, and but you did. And that's where Laron sits in both that suit, because it was given retired preacher, and the energy and how he dealt with both Koshia and Maya. So we skip over to how him and Maya connected early on, and everything was good. I don't know this. And y'all let me know. I feel like the body language on with them on the couch just showed how much of their situation was kind of like BS to me. It just also made me feel like, LaRon and her and their connection really wasn't what, they were claiming it was, or what they were claiming it to be. It just kind of felt like, he was just, she was going along with the motions, but that their dynamic just wasn't been and hadn't been the thing that, he was making it out to be. And it really just did not connect for me, that I was like, okay, they are definitely into each other so much. It more so gave that they're cool, but nothing about him and Maya gave romantic on that couch. Everything gave, I'm here. Yes, we're talking. And that's how she kept describing their situation. They obviously get into the fact that him and Maya sort of went at it, and it was what it was. And it was just like a weird thing. Now, LaRon did get online later on, after the reunion, and he made a couple of comments, and, I'm going to show them here on the screen. So one, LaRon said that, he was so glad that the next show is coming on, and that he's not somebody that's into dating. I like dating in private. He said, who knew Maya coming back to me would make the internet so mad? So I guess after the reunion aired, people started to go to his page or to Maya's page and kind of go at her about why was she dating him still, like he wasn't good for her, whatever they wanted to state it. He said, if it makes you all feel better, she's done with me now. So please, y'all can move on to this new shit. This happened in October, and thanks to you all, she's done with me since the end of March. So congratulations to Maya for being free, girl. But, LaRon seemed to be pissed that multiple people didn't see him and Maya being a connection. I really am also not sure why she gave him another chance. I feel like just those early anger issues were enough to cut it off, especially because she had prior experiences that weren't great, and LaRon had a lot of growing up to do. Now, where LaRon was a favorite for me, though, was getting Alexis and Will out that house. So he, to me, was a needed asset, but I think his stay was pretty much not necessary after eliminating William. because I do not feel William and Maya had a good connection. But after the show with the case that William was a part of the BS, I feel like LaRon's time from the house should have been ended at that part. So y'all let me know how y'all feel. How did y'all feel about LaRon? It apparently also appears that him and Chaz and Zoe are really, really, really cool. If anything, the company you keeps is a whole lot. When I tell y'all, this is my favorite part of the episode. Whew, we finally got out of a lot of the drama because let's be honest, this was at this point we watched Ready to Love. We just literally watching it to see what the shenanigans is going to be. I don't think we ever feel that we're going to find a love couple out of this situation. Every season we pretty much only get one couple, and we got to hope they make it past after the reunion is. But this segment was incredibly good because this is when I feel like LaRon is at his best. So we just talked about where I just don't think LaRon was a love connection for anybody. He is absolutely somebody I could play spades with. LaRon is a good time, honey, and he do not play with Will in any form or fashion. And that's why I was here for him. So they get into the whole conspiracy theory and the whole elimination plot that had been going on for the whole season. And we know LaRon revealed that during the vacation home when he mentioned that Will was a part of a plot and a text message chain with some of the men from the show about who they should try to eliminate strategically. Now, we know LaRon was kind of using that for his own selfish reasons to get closer to Maya, but he also was saying that he was tired of people kind of plotting against everybody individually. How he got into the chat, Dominic tries to explain. So Tommy says, like, look, clear this whole situation up. Like, where did this whole elimination plot start to take place? Dominic says that the group chat initially started as a way for the men to connect off of the show, which Tommy said that he obviously has told them several times to not talk outside the men's lounge. But he said it was a way for them to just connect as men, staying in touch with each other and kind of letting each other know where they were in the process. Now, we know in other shows and in previous seasons, people have actually done that and it's been somewhat successful. But in this situation, I believe that Will 1.0 and 2.0, along with Zoe, maybe some of the other men decided that they were going to try to determine who the elimination people would be. And ultimately, Will, with the fake chain, with the cash money spinner from Dollar Tree, ended up stating that, you know, he had an inside track, and that inside track was Alexis. Almost everybody on the cast agreed both in the front and the back that Will was lying. Will ultimately goes on to say that he never even said that. You know, he didn't say these things in the text messages. LaRon is like, you are lying. I have the text messages. He's like, well, pull them up. So LaRon starts to pull out his phone. He's like, I don't even talk to Alexis like that. I didn't talk to her. And it's like, that was absolutely your connection. He goes, I don't even talk to her like that. I don't even talk to you like that. And LaRon is like, yeah, because you know better. When I tell you, oh my gosh. So Will goes on to say that that's not true. LaRon is lying. And then they asked Will 2.0. And he said, you know, I'm going to just stay on out of it. And that's when you knew for sure that there was something to what LaRon was saying. And we believed it at the house then. Because Will had already tried to backtrack with Maya at the house about how he wasn't really a part of the way that LaRon was saying it. It was taken out of context. But he confirmed that there was a text message chain going on. So LaRon says, hey, you want to read this, Tommy? You can read this. Like, Tommy's like, I've been reading all damn day. And he takes the phone and he says, he starts to read down the message. And basically Will is telling everybody, like, this is a game, you know, that he's got an inside track with somebody in the situation. We need to determine how we eliminate these women. Just a whole bunch of shenanigans and stupidity that you get from somebody not just his age with a lack of maturity, but also somebody that would wear that Meek Mill suit. So he says that they should pick up who's going to be eliminated. And these women really just want to eliminate the men that are the most attractive first, and the men with the most swag. It was ridiculous. So LaRon basically confirms with receipts that there was in fact a plot to eliminate certain women and to try to do that. And they were basing some of their determinations off of the intel that they were getting from Alexis, who was in the room with the women, who was supposed to be protective of them, just the way that they would have been protective of her when it came to discussing their dates, but was selling them out to Will. So Tommy's like, this is ridiculous. And Dominic also expressed early on at the top of the discussion, as did LaRon in closing, that because of the game playing that was done, it really messed with the process and messed with the ability for people to have genuine connections and have genuine eliminations. And April goes on to say that she really is kind of hurt that Will saw it as a game, because she also saw the text message chain and she saw what he mentioned it as a game. And as a result, it was disturbing because a lot of those people didn't come there for that. And this is again why I feel like they need to stop including people under a certain age on this show. That they need to have the 40s to maybe 50s folks be in a show and maybe have a younger bunch, and they could actually separate the groups, and that way you would have more maturity, maybe, or just people in different places in their life that have maybe the same mindset. Not that you still don't have a bunch of women and men that are fools at 40 and 50, but I just think that the places they are in their life is just a bit different, and they would make for still interesting television, but just a lot more linkage and more success for the show. So Tommy says he hates that that's the situation because he told them from day one, do not connect outside of this space. Try to keep it as pure as possible. And ultimately, a lot of what could have been avoided was not because people were trying to play some type of other thing. Will goes on to say that he thought he was playing the Hunger Games and not regular games. At this point, we do not care. The process was already tainted, and it was Will, Alexis, other Will, Zoe, and whatever the fool was in that text message chain. This segment ends, and we move on to what is possibly the only love connection on this season. Now we're gonna get to the love connection real quick, but I just want to kind of flip the script because I know this is the last segment of the night, but I'm gonna actually make the last segment of the night uh talking about Mika and Justin. So, we're at the end after we've talked about Mika and Justin, and we get Tommy asking everybody where they stand in their situations. Of course, Mika and Justin are still going strong, they're still doing their thing. But then he gets to the singles in the room. And when I tell you, the ego just won't stop for some folks. So they get talking to different people. Rashina and others, they're still out there dating, looking for love. He asked Will, Meek Mill Jr., what is he up to? He said that he is spending time with a young lady right now. And then he goes, he got another young lady he's talking to. Will gives me things I say in the locker room in high school energy every single time he opened his mouth. Just the need to impress the other athletes that he's trying to get onto varsity basketball with. It's very corny. But he ultimately says that he is dating right now. He's dating other people, getting to know folks, and he's got two women. And Patrice goes, "Oh, he's got two girls." Nobody believes him, and they move on to other folks. Will says that he currently is planning a fair date, and he looks down and he's sitting behind Patrice. And so Patrice is like, oh, so everybody's like, okay. So he's like, yeah. So Patrice is like, look, we stayed connected. He was one of my other strongest connections. And Will was like, we really ain't stayed, not been talking since the brunch. We've been tight. So Patrice is like, yes, he owes me a fair date. So all of a sudden, Zoe's face is shocked, and Tommy's like, put your eyes back in your head. Why are you looking like that? Like a cartoon character. He's like, oh no, I'm just listening. And you could tell Zoe was shocked. I guess he thought that Patrice should be down bad. Because he had been playing around with her feelings and playing around with this game. But it's clear that, and this is in general for both men and women, you can play with somebody else all you want to. Don't assume that, just because I've narrowed in on you that I'm not still keeping my phone more. And I'm not saying engage into situations with that dynamic, but when you're picking somebody, especially somebody off the market that you find attractive and other people do as well, don't assume that you're going to keep them down bad forever. If you got a good man and you playing around with him, he absolutely is going to find somebody else. If you got a good woman and you playing around with her, she's absolutely going to find somebody else once they realize the shenanigans is there. Like, I'm going to stay hurt, but I'm going to be hurt, but I'm not going to stay hurt. Do you hear me? So he moves on, and this was my favorite one of the night because after the reunion, they followed it up with like a picture. Both Vanessa and Dom posted in their stories a picture with the two of them together. So I believe that they're still talking and still kicking it. But he asked if Vanessa was going on, and Vanessa says that she has been still connected with Dom this whole time. And when I tell you the line that Dom said after this is what I'm talking about when I say how you protect other people and just how you articulate yourself with very clear intention. Again, Chaz, we are talking to you. He says we have a tremendous bond. When I tell you Chaz's face, the nose and that face he makes completely scrunched up, he was so pissed because you could tell that he thought that he had gotten the best of her again in that moment. And Vanessa just easily chill, and Dom being very easy and breezy was like, we have a tremendous connection. We're still flowing. There wasn't any emphasis on trying to make Chaz feel bad. It's just like, this is my reality. And I love this for Vanessa. If she has found a connection with him, I know that they're both pretty creative and artsy, and he kind of talked about that before. Dom obviously knows how to dress better, and I feel like as long as he kind of calms down that timeline to want to have a baby tomorrow, they probably will be able to move further in a serious situation. So good luck to them both. And they were my favorite dress of the night. He then goes on to ask Lamar what's going on with him. And Lamar says, he's still single. We're not shocked. But, he's still out there looking for the lady in his life and what that could be. We're still wondering who, in fact, would date Lamar, but it is what it is. And let's move on to Mika and Justin. Okay, so finally we get to the couple that we actually believe and who did find love on this journey. And we have the final sit down with Justin and Mika, and they start to go over their love journey. And we know that Justin is only there because Ghostly Glenn decided not to show up until now, and has been entirely boring this entire time. Can we talk about that? Because I really know that Mika did later on after the reunion aired. Somebody asked her online how she felt like, was Glenn a total waste? She said, girl, absolutely a total waste. He did not need to be on that segment, and was boring. None of the women connected. Anyway, fast forward. So we have this conversation. We see how Mika eventually connected with Justin after he ended up replacing Glenn, not showing up, and they had a strong connection. But it definitely got built further down the line because initially Justin did connect with Rashina. The entire time, Justin's been a fun guy, been very cool, very chill, fit into the group. He really appreciated everybody embracing him early on, and pretty much was the cool dude that kind of just kept showing up, very chill, kept everything light, fun, and funny. And Mika's been more seriously focused on definitely finding love in the process and finding a relationship, and also being clear about the fact that she did not want to have more children. So we know that she has a 16-year-old, I believe she has like an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, and then she has like a 6-year-old. So she really was not interested in having more kids. She made that very clear. And for a while, we thought that would be the thing that would eliminate her early, because many of the men on the show that did not have kids wanted kids. Or if they did have children, they definitely wanted a child with their wife or this new love if they ended up making it to that stage. And so there was a touch and go with her for a while. I think the bombshell body kind of kept her in the game for a bit. But I think men did genuinely connect with her. But a lot of them were concerned that her not wanting to have kids would, cut their journey short. Justin uniquely came in the game, liking both her and Rashina, who are already parents, and saying that he was okay not having kids and he was okay with having kids. So it was an either or for him. It wasn't a deal breaker for her, for him, if neither of the women wanted more children, and he was open to the idea of kids, but it was either or. So that really helped her stay in there. And certainly at the vacation houses where they connected the most. They got to be really tight. They had fun. It was clear that they started to trust each other and just really, really connected. And after that, it was a wrap. There was like the two of them, two peas in a pod. The thing I loved most about their journey was that the other women really were not haters. And Justin stayed focused. Pay attention, Chaz. This is how you show a woman that she is your primary connection. Although Justin had maybe one or two other connections, as the game lingered on, and especially after the vacation house, there just wasn't a lot of women he was adding back to the bucket. Even if there was a potential that Mika and him did not work out, because he did have lots of conversations around space and whether or not he was sure, having not been in a relationship for a long time, if he could do the whole full-blown thing because he was used to having his own space. He was very clear about the fact that he needed to get out of his own way to get into a relationship with Mika. And so he kept the focus there. There wasn't a lot of shenanigans, game playing, who do you like, who do you not like. Tommy goes on to add that, he thinks they're a great connection, and he wants to know, have they both said the L word? They said that they have. And Justin leads the conversations in a lot of ways, because I think Mika's very nervous. She made that clear on the bridge when she was professing how she felt about him. She kind of had to write it down because she's a little bit more nervous talking publicly about stuff like that. But you could tell that they're extremely smitten with each other. Ooh, let's go back, smitten. Definitely a strong love, early love. And they both said that word. They didn't go on to ask Justin, has he met her children? And Mika says, she's still very protective of that. They are really new. He has talked to her, I think her son on Skype, but he's not met her daughter because her daughter's in college right now. So she's been away, so he hasn't met her. But that is going towards the ways it needs to be going, and that everything is flowing well. Tommy's just happy that they made it through. So are we. Something happened that was resembling love during this season. So I guess they can keep the title. Tommy just happy somebody worked out. Why when the segment cuts off, he's like, thank God. He said, basically, I'm just glad y'all didn't embarrass me. Thank God somebody made it. So that means that like we know, Tommy, that this situation is BS and you and Will Packer them need to get it together. But I digress. I'm just happy that a couple liked it. I like them. Hopefully they go the long way. And I did see that Justin said online as well that, he really is happy that the show is over as well because he's a really private person and he doesn't do a lot of like public dating. And even though he went on this show as, just to give himself a chance, he's not a guy that likes to date publicly, and him and Mika are sort of pretty quiet people when it comes to that. Somebody did ask him to post a picture of them. I think her or him to post a picture of them post. And he did post a picture of them in the gym together. Just said like, yes, they're very much in love still together. But he's happy that, he got to know these people away from the cameras, that he made a lot of cool connections and friends, that, they're solidly good. And one of the things that I love the most was that Mika said a lot of the women get along. Like post the show, a lot of them are super cool. They get along very well. She even posted a picture. And I'll try to throw a clip in here of her and the ladies and just saying like, yeah, everybody's still cool. We're still having a good time rocking out. And I think because they respected each other and the boundaries, and for the most part, old ass, thirsty ass Patrice, I think that they respected the connections when they were there and nobody was fighting over these men in a catty way. It was a grand thing to see, to be honest. The Dallas Fort Worth cast has been one of my favorite, especially when it came to the women. I really enjoyed their energy together and the positivity and how they supported each other through their choices. And nobody was being slimy and messy with the exception of Alexis, with each other. And it was just cool to see grown women act like grown women. Y'all let me know what y'all thought of this season and the show, how y'all feeling about Ready to Love as a franchise. Do we feel like they need to take a break or bring it on for another city? Y'all let me know in the comments and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye.